welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things. And today I am giving you my April wrap-up. April was actually probably my least amount of books read since I've started YouTube. I've been very busy, admittedly, with opening the crochet shop and just life in general and trying to exist, basically. So I will give that disclaimer that it has been an interesting month. I also have read some not so great books. None of them were outright bad, but none of them were outright good. In fact, my top 5 books this month only has 4 books because of that. So that's disappointing. Let's go ahead and talk about the stats for this month. I will totally disclaim that I forgot to log how many library books I checked out this month. A lot would be my general answer, but I don't. How many books did I read that I owned this month? Like 2, so you can go from there, aside from ARCs, so never mind. I guess it's a little bit more than 2. Anyway, I forgot to track it. That's my bad. I will do better next month. So for the stats, we have 23 books read, 2,818 pages read, 160 hours and 5 minutes of audiobook listening, which is about 6 days, an average of 145.9 pages read per day, an average of 7 hours and 2 minutes and 36 seconds listened per day. I acquired only 1 book, which was about $8, and that was You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca. And I reread 5 books. My average rating for this month was a 3.4, which is pretty fucking shitty if you ask me. Of those books, 15 of them were audiobooks, 4 of them were ebooks, and 4 of them were physical books. I read 4 books between the pages of 401 and 500 pages, 2 books between 301 and 400 pages, 1 book between 201 and 300 pages, and 1 book between 101 and 200 pages, and no books above or below either of those numbers. So before anyone is like, you probably only read short books, fight me. Of the age groups, I read no middle grade, no new adult, 11 young adult, and 12 adult, so I'm really happy to say that this month I did read more adult than young adult. So we are continuing on this interesting trend of like, will they, won't they read more adult this year than young adult, which is my goal, was to read more adult instead of young adult, but we'll see if it happens. Now let's talk about the genres. As well as here, I will be showing my book blanket and where it is at, and the size of it is quite large now, and I have spent a whole lot of time on it. It hurts my hands. I've worked really hard on it. I think that this month was a lot easier just because there were a lot less books, and hopefully next month again has less books. I do want to say that I think that the book blanket is actually really keeping me like slowing down my reading and enjoying my reading a little bit more, because the less books I have, the less I have to crochet, which is really nice. I am surprised though that I am keeping up with it this far. When I originally had it as my mood blanket, full transparency, May is around the time that I quit updating it, so by the time, if I get to June and actually continue to do this, then I will be impressed. I think the fact that I'm documenting it via the internet is helpful though. So anyway, here's the book blanket and the genres that I read this month. For the genres this month, also so sorry about my shaky hands, we have 10 fantasy, 3 sci-fi, 3 nonfiction, 4 horror, 1 thriller, and 2 historical books. It's actually a lot of nonfiction for me, but it was enjoyable. I'm not mad about it. The blanket is now 30 inches wide. It is still super, super long because it is the length of a king-size bed, and it weighs 1 pound and 8 ounces. This is just to kind of show you how big it is. I am 5'1" and some change, so I just thought holding it up next to me would make it make more sense. Also to kind of show you how wide it is. Yeah, it's quite large. I was gonna say something about wingspan, but I have wings. I don't know what I'm doing here. Yep. Anyway, it has taken me a total of 30 hours, 10 minutes, and 29 seconds for this. And for those of you who crochet, I did once again at the end of the month, the last 8 rows are a moss stitch, which is what I'm doing here in this clip. Additionally, I am at a total of 140 rows for the entire blanket, which is how many books I have read as of the end of April. And now we have the part that I think everyone likes, the best of my wrap-ups, which is where I talk about the best and the worst books this month. Now, again, like I said earlier, I couldn't pick 5 top books out of the books that I read. No, not even Bravely. Not because any of them were outright horrible, but because there was one horrible book, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But because nothing was really all that impressive. And I think that I might be in a little bit of a reading slump where everything sort of just feels like the same content regurgitated, but I also sometimes start to feel like young adult especially is getting oversaturated with some of the same stories and concepts. And you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like I'm not experiencing a whole lot of new stories anymore, and I don't know how to say that in a way that doesn't make me sound like a dick, but here we are. Anyway, of the top 5 books though that I read, and we're gonna call it top 4, my bad, we have The Bone Orchard by Sarah A. Mueller. Now, this was recommended to me by Landis. I had no intentions of reading it or picking it up. I had not even heard of it until I saw Landis posting about it on TikTok, and I was like, ah, shit. So this book at first makes no sense. Like, you're reading it and you're just like, I don't get it. I don't know what's happening. I don't really understand the politics, especially for me as somebody who does not understand politics very well of adult fantasy. It usually goes over my head. I think that this kind of merged the two concepts in a way that made it more consumable and easier to process, at least for myself. The twist, though, in the end, around the end, rocked me to my core. I cannot emphasize enough that that is the reason that this book got such a high rating for me. I enjoyed the way that it represented different things as well, like traumas and the way that we react to them, as well as age gap relationships, even within fantasy, and how they're often brushed off as non-traumatic and non-problematic, which is not the case. They're dangerous notions to have and unhealthy. I just think that we should be more aware of them when we put them in fantasy. But overall, it was a really good book. Definitely, like, I think that the necromancy aspect of it is a little bit overhyped because it's way more complex than that, and it's not like what you actually think of necromancy. So I would not personally consider it a necromancy-based book, and I think that that concept is overhyped in it, but that's me. And then we have The Undiscovered Deaths of Grace McGill by C.S. Robertson. This is a thriller that Art recommended, and I was reading it. And I feel like this is happening a lot where I'm like, okay, why was this recommended to me? And it's about this cleaner who like goes in and cleans houses after a deceased person is found having been there for a really long time, which is a real job. And then like she starts connecting that some of these deaths are really similar, and it starts playing detective basically. And I can't tell you much more than that without spoiling the book, but the twist happened and I literally was like, did I miss something? So then I went back a chapter, because sometimes like you're listening and you think like, well, maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention. So then I went back, slowed the audiobook down, and was listening, and I was like, oh no, I didn't miss something. What the fuck? So there's that. That happened. I literally can't tell you more than that, but it was really good. But after the shock of the twist ended, I was just like, okay, all right. It wasn't that I stopped enjoying it. I did enjoy the rest of it. I just was like, okay, how are you gonna continue to shock me now? Then we have Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. This is what the worst book of this month really wishes that it could have been. Atlas 6 is an adult fantasy of like magicians being the smartest, bestest magicians that there ever were. Dark academia, very A Deadly Education-esque vibes, I would say. I found that the characters very witty and funny. I found that the way that magic was presented really interesting, and I also really appreciated just the dynamic of everything and the secrets as they slowly came out, and I think that the pacing of the book was really well done. The characters were, again, really, really enjoyable. Even the unenjoyable characters that made me want to fist fight, I really enjoyed reading them, and I enjoyed how they added tension in the story. I read this book across like a couple of days because I actually wanted to take my time to enjoy it, and it was definitely worth it. And it was, again, an art recommendation, so thanks Art for continually recommending me books that get put on my top 5 books. Then we have We Can Never Leave This Place by Eric LaRocca. So I've read one other book by Eric LaRocca, and I believe that it was one of my top 5 books last month, which is not What Have You Done Today to Deserve Your Eyes, which is what I want to call it again. Things have gotten worse since we last spoke. Eric LaRocca writes really incredible horror novellas, and this one felt a little bit of a different type of horror than the other book. I will give full disclaimer, this book isn't out yet. It'll come out in June, I believe, June or July. Full disclaimer though, if you are sensitive to any kind of animal violence or bug violence, that kind of thing, like if those things hurt your feelings, highly recommend do not pick up this book, don't read it, don't look at it, don't even consider it. I don't want anyone's feelings to get hurt because of that. And definitely read any trigger warnings that are available to you, period, point blank. When it comes to horror, please take care of your mental health. But this book was very... the whole time you're just like, what the fuck is happening right now? And you keep reading it and things keep escalating. So you don't start at 100, and I think this is a problem with a lot of horror novels and a lot of books that class themselves as dark and like addressing dark concepts, is that then they're like, oh, there's no reprieve from the darkness because life works at... A good horror book is going to start at 0 or at like 10%, 25%, and then slowly build its way up. Or start at 25% and then at the end go to 100 all of a sudden, 0 to 100, you know? The pacing of that is important for keeping your readers interested, because if you start at 100 and to keep me at 100, I'm gonna be bored. Like, it's hard to if you hyper expose someone to horror and expect them to not numb themselves out to it, then you don't know enough about human psychology. But the way that Eric LaRocca writes his horror does slowly take you to being more and more horrified, and I really, really appreciated that. This book really, there's a lot, and I can't end it. I can't like give you more information. I can't spoil it for you. I don't want to spoil it for you. But if you like gore and you like body horror and you can handle animals, so no one is like intentionally harming animals. It's not like humans going after animals, no hunting, nothing like that. It's not like that, to be clear. So I wouldn't enjoy a book like that, like no torturing of animals. So it's not like that, don't worry about that. But a lot of gore and other concepts that I would read the trigger warnings. But it was really good. Now for the worst book that I read this month. The worst book that I read this month was The Magicians by Lev Grossman, and I want to give a full disclaimer that 1, I liked the TV show, and 2, I do actually plan on reading the second book. Don't ask me why. Lev Grossman looked at Harry Potter and Narnia and said, you know what this book is missing? You know what it's missing, what these series are missing? An incel who can't stop thinking about people's tits. That's what he said. That's what he said. I promise you. He said, I need a character so unbearably unlikable who still somehow gets everything he wants and is ungrateful every single fucking step of the way. And I'm gonna make him my main character. And I'm gonna make him so unlikable and horny that the only person who falls for him is the big titty nerd who's smarter than everybody, including me, even though I'm the smartest one. And then I'm gonna cheat on her. And then, when she's mad at me, I'm gonna yell at her about it. 'Cause I'm the worst. The Magicians would have been a good book if the main character wasn't in it. That's it. It would have been a good book if we had just gotten rid of the main character. Also, the timeline of that book was a little bit strange to me, because we go from like 17-year-olds entering college to, okay, now they've graduated this 4-year college and they're just adults partying it up because they have magic and they don't know what else to do with their lives, which, I mean, lifestyles of the rich and the famous, you know, like, if you have the privilege and you have the riches, then of course you're probably going to be bored to tears, and that's not that unusual. If I'm supposed to feel bad about people being depressed because they got everything they could have ever wanted, you're going to be hard-pressed to make me feel sad for them. But that's the gist. If you thought about reading the book because you liked the TV show, don't. Our main character, whose name I can't think of right now, he is much more bearable in the show, because while he's still selfish and self-loathing and he wallows a lot despite getting whatever he wants, something about it is more endearing in the show than it is in the book. And I think it's because in the book you have to read every one of his inane thoughts, and all of those thoughts are usually based around, wowie, couldn't pay attention because this lady's tits are in my face. I was highlighting every time he unnecessarily sexualized a character, and by the time I had like 50 highlights in the first 25% of the book, I was like, I need to stop for my mental health. I had the audiobook and checked out the ebook just so that I could do that, and then I was like, no, I need to stop for my mental health. I definitely also, in the book compared to the show, it is very blatant that this is Narnia Harry Potter fanfiction, like self-insert-esque fanfiction. I don't know anything about the author, but it feels self-insert-esque fanfiction. Like, I got bullied and girls didn't want to date me, and I wanted to actually be the bestest, smartest, greatest everything in the world, so also I escaped into books like Harry Potter and Narnia, and no one ever loved me. It feels like that. And no shame in that game. I have read other books, especially fantasy written by men, that act and feel that way. It just was bad. It was bad. That's it. I don't have anything else to say about it. It was not good. I'm gonna read the second book because supposedly it's a lot better. Do we get rid of the main character? What is his name? I feel like it starts with a G. I don't know. It's the way my brain refuses to remember names. It just kills me. Get rid of him and the book will be great. Well, there's some pacing issues. A lot of pacing issues. Like, what the fuck is that timeline? It's a very weird timeline. Like, I feel like it wasn't long enough to be that kind of timeline. Not that it needed to be any longer, because it didn't. But it wasn't long enough to be that long of a timeline. And I'm honestly not really sure what the second book is supposed to even be about. Like, that series could have ended with just this first book, so I don't really know what the next steps here are. That is my wrap-up for the month of April. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry that I get rambly. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. If you didn't enjoy this video for any reason other than my opinion differing from yours, please let me know in the comments down below how I can make it a better video for you. And I will see you guys again on Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time and Tuesday 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every single week. I think that's it, yeah. Also, I think it would be really cool, because this is my birth month. I turned 27 this month. It would be super duper cool if I got to 900 subscribers this month, so if you guys wanted to help me with that, I would love it. I would appreciate it a lot. No pressure though. Don't forget to take your meds, drink your water, and do something today to take care of yourselves. Okay, thanks, bye.